Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tank Rodriguez, and you are indeed listening to the Tank Rodriguez Show. This is wasn't supposed to be the first episode, but it is, and I couldn't be more excited. And it may not sound like it. I'm exhausted right now. I just got off from work. I didn't sleep too well last night, but that's okay. We're gonna do this. This is what we're supposed to be doing, and it's going to happen. Uh, so, just jumping right into it, I did record two episodes here. It didn't really go. I guess I didn't. I'm not trying to put anyone on blast, but I guess I should. And going forward, here's what I'll say. If you're going to be on my show, which I would love to have a lot of people on my show, and the fact that when I do invite you and you say yes to it, I'm completely honored that you would take the time out of your life, out of your busy life, to want to come sit down with me. I mean, who am I really to just to come to my office and sit down and just talk to me for an hour or so? Um, but going forward, I guess I need to set some pretenses of what what the show is about, and I completely understand. And so maybe we did record two episodes with two awesome people, and I'm so glad that I'm able to call those people friends, and maybe things, you know, because here's the thing, and I totally understand it. I mean, there's not a lot of people in the world that are like an open book. There's some things people like to keep close to the chest, and I totally agree with that. And maybe we get lost, in the conversation, and we just kind of divulge too much information that maybe shouldn't be out there, or you're not comfortable with it being out there. Totally fine, totally get it. My first two guests, y'all are welcome back anytime, and we'll keep it. We'll keep it out of the personal range of y'all's lives, and I would love to have y'all back. But that being said, I need a first episode still, so I have a lot of great things lined up for this show here, and I'm really, really, and I can't stress it enough. And I'm probably going to sound like a broken record, probably for the first few episodes, about how excited I am to get this thing going. I didn't think I would be actually recording the first episode on my own, which is totally unheard of. I'm not even sure if I can talk that long. Well, we're going to find out today, aren't we? Especially if you're listening to this right now, guess what? I succeeded. If not, I mean, I'm just talking to myself now. um, but yeah, no, so, and I guess, here's a little bit about me, because I mean, who am I? I'm not like someone well known. I'm only well known around, I guess my peers and the people I grew up with. And so, what am I really trying to accomplish with this? And I made a quick Facebook video about it the other day when I signed a lease to this office here, and which we'll definitely get into, and how I came about that. But yeah, so my name is Tank Rodriguez. I live in San Antonio, Texas. I was born and raised here. Did a couple of months in Corpus, but that didn't pan out too well. Um, let's see. I'm 31 years old. Yeah, and I just I don't know. This to me, as far as wanting to start the podcast, I want to sit down with interesting people that I find interesting. People with awesome stories, amazing stories. I mean, you don't have to be. I mean, I know I kind of like I premised it around like business owners, authors. I mean, just people with interesting backgrounds of life. I want to sit down with you and get your uh, hear your backstory, where you came from, how you grew up, and how you overcame. Maybe you had a bad life and how you overcame that. I would love to hear that. And the reason, and not just for me, but for people listening to it. I mean, if people do decide to listen to the show, be able to hopefully inspire other people, or motivate, or maybe someone is feeling alone, and or feeling like left out, and thinking that they're the only person going through the situation, and they hear someone's story, not even just mine, but someone else's, and they're like, okay, well, maybe I'm not alone, maybe I'm not by myself, or as alone as I thought I thought I was, and hopefully we can change lives. I mean, we don't. I'll never really know until someone tells me, and as this progresses. But I just feel like I have to do this. I did have this podcast before, and I know I talked about it again. I might sound like a broken record, and I do apologize about that. But I did have this pod. I started the podcast back in like late 2015, maybe early 2016. I'm not exactly sure on the year, but it's been about 2 years since we started it off. And I started it with my best friend Todd, who I've known for over 10 years. And, it was kind of one of those, let's just see what happens with it. We were just kind of bored and really into like multimedia, into entertainment, like film and, it just all different aspects of entertainment. And so, I bought like these cheapy mics. I was recording on my laptop, and I had, I just made some room. I made some room in my bedroom. I even like so I had like a 60-inch TV. I sold that so I can like fund some things that I needed to start off the show. And so we started that off, and at first it was, and I'll never forget. And I think I still have it, and maybe sometime, some way down the line, I'll actually show it to you because it was the first episode was horrible. So what happened was we said, okay, cool. Like when you come over, or like our homework for the week, let's pick 10 things we want to talk about, and then we'll kind of briefly go over them, and then once we briefly go over it, we'll start to record. So cool, sounds simple enough. So we did, just all different things. It went from politics, just to some current events, movies, music, and it was all encompassing to anything we could talk about. And so we're like, okay, cool. You're fine with that. You're fine with that. I mean, let's just wing it. There wasn't really any kind of objective or format that we were going to follow. We were just going to go with it. And honestly, that's carried over to now. Even though this is the first episode, but with the first two episodes too, I don't have anything kind of structured or doctored already that I know what I'm going to go for. But anyway, but we're recording this, and I'm like, man, like, it sounds horrible. Like, okay, the first thing we're going to talk about is this. What do you think about this, Todd? What do you think about this, Tank? And it was just very, very robotic and it was just very fake. And I didn't like that. And then finally, like towards the end of it was like maybe like the middle of the episode, we started talking about movies, and then just right away, I mean, like it was night and day. Like if we've been doing it for years, and it was just so natural. I mean, and in movies wasn't even like, I know I said it was all encompassing, and we had like movie ideas on the 10 things we wanted to talk about. But this is totally something not even on the list, and we just started talking about it as we normally do without a microphone. The way we do, I mean, even to this day, we still talk about random things, even through text message, through phone. But yeah, and I kind of looked at him, and he kind of looked at me, and I was like, we were just kind of nodded our head, and we just kind of went with it, and then. So that first 40 minutes of crap, and then finally it just evolved into like an extra hour and a half. And then when it was funny because we wrapped it up, we hit stop on the recorder, and we were like, we got to do that. Like it was like at the same time we said it to each other, like, that's what we need to do. That's the format we need to stick with. And, the lack of format is the format we need to do because that was, it was brutal at the beginning. Like, it was just like, oh, like, what are we doing? Maybe this is not the best idea for us. Maybe a podcast was a horrible, horrible idea. And then at the end, it was like, yeah, this is exactly what we should be doing. And then from then on, like we stuck towards entertainment because that was really easy. But I mean, there were times where Todd couldn't come to the show, and I would have a guest on. And at the time, it was more so geared towards like wrestling, because I did wrestle for a while, and I was training to go back, and so being around that scene, I got to meet a lot of the wrestlers that were up and coming, people that had been in the business for a long time, so that was a little bit easier, and then of course people that I found interesting too. I did good too. I mean. More recognizable people rather than just my friends, which is not a problem. Either way, I was just happy to be recording. So, shit hit the fan a little bit after that because, it was going smooth. It was going well. It was definitely picking up momentum. And then, I would record with a guest, and, Todd would sometimes be on, or it would just be me and Todd again. And, it would alternate. It had no structure, but it felt so natural. Like, it was so much fun, and it wasn't really anything that required a lot of effort. It just came so natural to us, and we were just having the time of our lives, and we couldn't wait. Like it was so frustrating because just because of our schedules and finding the guests at the time, and us really, I mean, truly, I mean, we were having fun doing it, but we truly didn't understand. And I know it sounds kind of trivial to think about, like how hard could a podcast be, but uh, saying that we didn't have any structure as far as recording the show, yeah, that's great. But as far as like finding guests and having like a kind of like a direction of what we were going towards, that was kind of brutal. So we would only record once a week, which was so frustrating to me. I wanted to record. I mean, more than once at least. I mean, I wanted to do it 2, 3 times. I mean, if I could, I would have recorded every day if I had enough guests or and maybe enough interesting things to talk about. And so once a week, it started to become once every 2 weeks, and then once every month. And then I think around that time, my brother had moved, or I lost my job. I lost my job for I was let go of, and I was making really good money at that time, and things kind of spiraled out of control, just really financially, and kind of lost, it's kind of lost momentum there, and then. On top of that, my brother had decided who I was living with. Him and his wife, my sister-in-law, moved to Boston, and didn't really have anywhere to go. So that's how the podcast ended through there. And so, so I spent like maybe a year and a half, kind of just, well, no, about a year, just getting my life back together. As far as like, I wasn't on drugs or anything. I mean, granted, I have done drugs in the past, and that's ruined my life in that, in during that time. But during this particular time, it was just more financially and having like a solid job to really kind of just fall back on to be able to support what I wanted to do outside of a normal, 9 to 5. So I wound up at, coming back to finding a really good job, and then that paid well. I got a car because I lost my car, so I got another car, and then so slowly but surely too. And then me and Todd would start talking about, like, hey man, like we had a really good time with that podcast. Like we should probably like bring that back. Granted, I had no equipment whatsoever. I sold everything that I had because I needed the money at the time. So, talking to Todd about it, um, he was like, "Okay, you know what? Yeah, let's try it again. Let's definitely try it and see what we can do. See what comes up with it." Um, so this is around November of last year, October, November of last year. So I buy the microphones and I buy the recorder, um, you know, and so just enough equipment to get us started with, very bare bones, but just enough to get us off the ground. And so and then at that time, Todd's living in Atascosa, which is a little south of San Antonio, which is not far from where I'm at the time, about a 30-minute drive, which is fine, 30 minutes from anywhere in San Antonio. So I would take the microphones, take the stands, take the wires, take the recorder, and uh, and so I think the first time we went, we plugged everything in. One of the cords was dead. It was a dead cord because I bought it used. So we're like, okay, well, we'll try next week. So I get a new cord, and get a new cord, and then so we try to record again, and the batteries die. The batteries die really quick, or something. Something was happening on a weekly basis to where it wasn't going smoothly. The last time we recorded, it was like we were like 4 or 5 minutes in, and the recorder just gave out, and I'm like, "Ugh, this is not happening. Like, what's the whole point of it?" And and the weird part was too, like I had already moved out of where I was living at the time, and moved to outside of San Antonio, north of San Antonio, like 2 towns over from San Antonio, and Todd was still living in Atascosa, so like the drive was as brutal for me. Todd has kids, so I wasn't expecting him to come over to my place, just for the kids to be, not have their own room, not have the toys to play with, and just kind of be sitting there while we're recording and expecting them to behave, being younger kids. Like, that was unrealistic of me. So we just kind of, that fizzled out too. So, I mean, and that was like beginning, like, yeah, the beginning of January, maybe the end of December. And so I don't know. And so it was like, well, maybe the podcast isn't meant to be. Maybe I'm just, destined just to let it go. It's not supposed to happen. It's not in the cards, or maybe not right now. But I don't know. Just over time, like, me and Todd will still talk about it, and like, man, like, this should happen. Like, this should really happen. Like, we have things to say and things to get off our chest again, but we're nobody. I mean, we're not. I'm not expecting this, to do anything. I'm just making sure that I do this before I die. That way I don't have any regrets, and that way I can say I tried something, and whether it works out or not, I'm totally fine knowing that I just tried. So I I I got it geared up again. I got the right equipment. I got, an adapter from a recorder so the batteries don't die. I double checked the cords, made sure everything was working properly, and I was going again. This time, unfortunately, Todd moved from Atascosa. He moved back to his hometown. His wife got stationed in the military in Georgia, which I'm completely happy for him. Um, and so I was kind of on my own at that time when I really decided that I was going to bring it back and I was going to go full force with it. So there I am, just like, okay, well, I live, most of the people that I want to talk to, that I'm familiar with, live in San Antonio, and so I'm just reaching out to these people. I'm like, hey, would you be interested in coming over here to record? And majority of the time, it was like, that's a little far. I don't think I'd be interested in doing that. And so, and again, totally, totally being realistic there. I totally expected that, to happen, but I had to try. I had to ask. Um, so, so then, one of my friends that I was talking to, I was talking to him. I was like, hey, like, would you be down to record? And finally, I don't know what it was with him. Like, he's like, well, do you have a place? And I was like, yeah. I didn't even ask him, like, if he would be willing to come down or come up and visit me. I just kind of wanted to, I don't know. I just wanted to get it done. I was being impatient, and I was being impractical with it. And that's when I finally decided. I was like, you know what? Like, if you want this, go get it. Actually go get this if you really, really want it. And so the next day, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna go ahead and start looking for offices. I think I need to get an office. I mean, it was just a voice inside my head that said, "This is what you need to do in order to make this happen." And I was like, "Oh, but that's crazy." And if anybody listening here knows me really well, um, I know this is kind of like a really like a big old dig on me. But I talk. I mean, there are times when I talk a big game, like, "Hey, this is what I'm going to accomplish," and I go after it, and I probably fail. Probably 90% of the time at these things, or it kind of like it seems like a good idea at first, and it kind of fizzles out afterwards. So I didn't really tell a lot of people. I ran some things. I ran it by a couple of people, like, "Hey, like, what do you think if I did this?" And most of the people honestly were really receptive to it, like, man, that would be awesome. Like, I can see you doing that. And there was some kind of negative, like, well, what about this? Like, what about like this and that? And I mean, it was this negative, just some negative vibes going on. But I took everything, and it wasn't so much negative vibes. It was just maybe more so a worry for me and my well-being, which is, hey, totally cool. Respect that, 100%. But then so I took everything, I took all that into consideration, but I just felt like, what does Tank want to do? What's best for you? Like, what would make you happy to do this? So then I decided, hey, you know what? Let's go through with it. Let's see what's out there. Let's just go look. It's not going to hurt to look. So yeah, so then I look on Craigslist, and this is where I found that information from. I found everything. I mean, I found all the offices that I went to go look at were on Craigslist, and that was kind of like the only place that I looked. I tried other places online, but it just seemed really, really complicated as far as like really fancy, maybe out of my budget, and to where it that was to me unrealistic. So very bare bones going to Craigslist, as sketchy as that sounds. But luckily, I did find a couple of places. I found like 4 or 5 places, if I'm not mistaken. And those 4 or 5 places, I mean, really, really opened my eyes to like what I'm really trying to accomplish in life, as far as not in life. I'm sorry, but so much with the podcast. Um, I, I, so I went to go look at one place here, and it was set up. I mean, like it was like maybe like $50 out of my budget. But the way it was set up purposely like for like a multimedia room to be able to record audio and video if I wanted to. Um, but it just I don't know. I saw it and I was like, yeah, that's really nice, and it would be I would be super ahead of the game as far as what I'm trying to do. Ultimately, at the end, in the end result, I'd be so much ahead of the curve of where I'm at right now. But okay, cool. Let's go look at some other places. And most of and the rest of the other places were exactly the same. Out of my a little bit out of my budget, not too much to where I would feel it, but just where I didn't want to be. And same thing, multimedia rooms, and specifically set up for recording audio and video. And so I was like, man, that's crazy. Like this is really cool. And then finally, I went to go look at this last place. And this last place, and it was this. I walked in, super echoey, not set up. I think it must have been used for a storage room, um, and and I'm just looking at it. I'm like, this is it. Like, this is where I need to be, and I didn't fall in love with it or anything like that. But I just knew like I needed to have this hole in the wall looking place, and it's not a hole in the wall. I'm just using it as an exaggerate to be in comparison to the other places I looked at. Because I really want to, I mean, to me, I really want to start at the bottom here and really work my way up, if possible, if that's the end goal, and just to really see and really document like where I came, like where this all started from, and as far as like finding that place, I mean, so I signed the lease, and it took so long too. And oh, man, and I'm usually a patient person. Like I'm really, really usually a patient person. But for whatever reason, man, like it just kept on getting pushed back. It kept on getting pushed back as far as signing the lease. And I'm like, oh man, come on, like hurry up. Like I want to do this. I want to do this. Like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. So it took like an extra 2 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, in order to finally get this place, which was torture for me for whatever reason. And yeah, so I signed the lease to the place, and I shoot a little Facebook video going over exactly what I just said, but just a little bit shorter in a shorter amount of time. So if you're listening to this and you saw my Facebook video, I do apologize about that. And I promise you, like this whole elongated explanations of what's going on here. This episode is basically just a setup process of what's in store to come. So you can definitely turn this off. I won't be offended by it, but I definitely wanted to put something out there to make it official. Like this is what I'm doing. I'm not all talk here. So, but that being said, I went ahead and I made that Facebook video. Excuse me, hold on. I'm just rolling up my sleeves. It's getting a little hot in here. Yeah, so I made that Facebook video, and my friend Todd, who was the co-host, he doesn't have social media, so I made and he does. The only thing he has is Snapchat, I think, and so I made a little Snapchat story, and I sent him a text message. I go, hey, look, check out my story, and he goes, man, that's badass. He goes, just don't quit. And I was like, man, that's like, honestly, that's like really, really good advice. Basically, he was saying, no matter what, man, like no matter what happens, don't quit. And that's true because I guess growing up, it wasn't the easiest thing. Like as far as I don't, it's hard to talk about. I'm sorry. but there was a lot of negativity growing up as far as things I should do and things I shouldn't be doing. And I was really it was everything that I was wanting to do in life was kind of outside the box. And if you know me, I'm definitely an outside the box type of guy. Um, so so when I wanted to do something and there was just the slightest hint of negativity, I was like, we tried, whatever. Like I just kind of gave up on it, and so like, and I think more so when everything started going downhill when we originally started the podcast, Todd had kind of called it. He goes, "Yeah, you just kind of gave up, man. Like, yeah, you lost your job, but then you didn't look for anything else. You didn't want to co-record. You had all these things lined up, and it's true, like." And it wasn't so much just a podcast; it was actually a video show too, to where we would go interview people. And we had people lined up that wanted to speak with us, and then like to give us tours of their business and of their restaurants, and everything was good. But it was just some sort of downhill moment, some moment of some obstacle in my way, and I just kind of shut down. And I just felt like I was never good enough to make it, or good enough just to make this happen here, and so I think that's what he was referring to. There's a lot of things in life too that I kind of gave up as well, and I just hope for this time, like, and I don't even hope, I just know it, like, because as tired as I am, I had to come today. Like I had to put an episode out today, and it's not because I told people I would. It's because I told myself I would. You know, I'm tired of being that guy. I'm tired of like just being like disappointing. Not so much with others, but so much with myself. And he goes, because then I'll beat myself up about it and just kind of like, oh yeah, you're not good enough. And just what kind of example am I setting? And I talk this big game about how I want to make everyone happy around me, or just not so much make everyone happy, but I do want to be able to enrich people's lives just by being me, and as selfish as that sounds, like that's just something that I felt like I was born to do, as far as make others around me feel inspired and motivated to do better for themselves, not so much for others, but for themselves. How can I do that if I can't do that for myself? So that's honestly like it's kind of like the underlying reason for this. Why I want to just keep going strong with this. Like I'm exhausted. I can't wait to go home and sleep. But I got to do this. Like this is now my baby. Like this is now. Excuse me. Like I can't even put it into words. Like I don't want to give up. I'm not going to give up on this. I'm really excited about this. I was a little bummed out with the first two episodes because I think the first two episodes went really, really well. And I take that back. Uh, um, so the second episode went amazing. The first episode went good. So back in, and this is probably the last thing I'll talk about because I don't think you want to hear me talk. I can legitimately go on for like an hour, but we're coming up at the 30-minute mark. So I think we'll call it quits there after I finish this, and wrap this up here. But like what the key motivator, like the specific small game kind of motivator that really kind of fired me up to want to do this was because I went through some shit. Back in last year, 2017, from like July to December, and I took it really, really hard. I'm maybe sometime I'll get into it, and maybe I won't. But if you know me, if you're around me during that time, you know exactly what I'm referring to. But this was supposed to be kind of like the clapback, if you will. Like, hey, you know what? You try to bring me down. But I'm actually going higher than you. I'm actually doing bigger and better things. Like it doesn't faze me anymore. And so, like during the first episode, I was just so pumped. I was so excited. I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna trash on them the way they trashed on me. But as I started talking and as I started talking to my guest, Monica, Mo, we love Mo. And I was just like, you know what? Like, this doesn't need to happen. Like, we don't need to trash that person. Like, I wish nothing bad for that person. I wish nothing but love and happiness for that person. You know, and even though they continue to talk mess, and that's fine. And I was just was so bitter, you know, about it, and that and so much like I wanted to have that bittersweet moment to where it's just like I win, you know, like I overcame this. But it's not about winning. It's not about losing. It's just about me living my life regardless of what people say or what people do. Like I'm not. I can't do that anymore. I can't live like that, and I'm not going to allow myself to do that. And so when I was recording and as I was going, I started like I feel it started feeling gross. Like this is what you're gonna do. Like this is how you're gonna launch that first episode. Like just so pity, and you're gonna sound like a little bitch. Like nah, man. Like fuck that. Like we're really going to like it's not the focus because to me it's a little contradicting, you know, if you want people to live their best lives but you're the hidden gem, you know, the hidden gem was just to kind of like blast this person. I'm not going to do that, you know. But I will say this, and I did say this on the first episode. Like it's no ill will anymore. Like I'm over everything that everything that happened and everything that was said, all the untrue stuff that was said. But I will. I mean, I will say this: like, it's an open invitation to ever be on my show if that person ever wanted to do that and talk about everything. I'm totally down with that. Um, and because I think it would be juicy, it'd be so juicy and just so like. But honestly, I think it would close a lot of a lot of loose ends for both parties to put a lot of things to rest and to just to live our lives, you know, the best way we can. Um, but yeah, but that being said, like I wanted to, like I was just like so motivated by that, and that's good. And you know what? And I'm glad that happened. I'm glad I was motivated by that, but it doesn't mean I need to talk about it or bash someone about it. It just, you know, if I wanted it to have like a big fuck you, just do it. Like it's like you know what, this is the fire you need. You don't need to trash that person, and I don't want to trash that person. Like I don't. Like I thought I did, but I really 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 don't. I don't want to trash anybody unless you're a trash human being. And there's a few of those out in the life, but I've luckily I've never met like a super trash human being, and I really I'm appreciative that I haven't done that. Um, but so yeah, so if there was a trash human, I'll tell you. But yeah, so use. I mean, if I could say anything on that, you know, if you're listening to this, I definitely feel that if you know you want to use like your hatred, your sadness, your loneliness, like your negative feelings as a fire or motivation, do it. Like just do it. Like do it for yourself though. Like it's like you know what, I'll show them. And yeah, you know what, you will show them, but you don't need to talk about it. You don't need to like bash that other person because you're no better than them if you do that. And that's what I really learned from that. And I'm so glad that Monica actually said, you know what, I'm a little have a little reserves about the first episode. That's great. You know what, and it gave me time to reflect about that and reflect about how maybe I was conducting myself and how I do need to conduct myself. You know, if I'm really going to be doing this, um, and if I'm going to be like, you know, quote unquote, preaching to people as far as like what I think they should be doing if I'm not listening to my own advice. Like, I mean, I don't want to be a hypocrite or contradict myself like that ever. So I'm so glad that happened, and I'm so glad that I'm actually doing this episode by myself and actually being able to explain those things. As far as the second episode with Megan, the poet, the author, she has a book. I would love to have her back again and just talk about her book and her inspirations without having to get anything personal there. Tomorrow, I'm really excited because I'm going to talk about something really important to me too with my good friend Matt, who's actually a sponsor of the show, which we'll get into, and we'll talk about sponsors, all that good stuff here. Um, but honestly, I mean, that's about it. You know, that I think that's where I'm at right now. I'm so pumped. I'm so glad if you're listening to this and you made it all the way through. Like, God, you're a trooper. Too, like I wasn't as funny as I thought I was gonna be. Like I thought I was gonna be cracking jokes for myself, but no, I think this is what really needed to happen, and I needed to find a way. And it was actually kind of a test to me to see if I could just talk this long without without having to think of what to say. Like this was kind of like a like a trial run for myself, but. I think I did pretty good. What do you think? Wherever you're listening to this, if you're listening, it has a comment section. Go and let me know what do you think about how I did this first episode. Regardless if I listened to you or not, do you have any critiques or what I should be doing? Over time, I hope to have some amazing guests or some amazing stories about people here. I want to showcase San Antonio, but it's all encompassing. If you don't even live in San Antonio, you come in, you're visiting. I want to talk to you. But yeah, no, I mean that's pretty much it, guys. I think we're gonna wrap up here. God, I mean, if you're listening to this again, I appreciate you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you so much for listening to all the way through. Even if you don't like me, thank you so much. You can thumbs down me if you want. Yeah, I don't care, but I'm super appreciative that you took the time to listen to me. My name's Tank Rodriguez, and we'll definitely see you on the next episode.